Welcome back to Mzansi. Welcomes the world. We are on day one of the G20 Leaders Summit. Let me welcome my next guest, Vincent Magwenya, the spokesperson for the presidency. Vincent, absolute pleasure having you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yes. It's
Um,
great to be here.
Vincent, I must confess, I was surprised at the short time it took for this declaration to occur. Was it something that took you by surprise?
No, not really, not really. And remember, this is a culmination of a years-long work with our Sherpa teams and the various ministerial teams in different working groups, as well as tracks, and also engagements with different sectorial groups that have been part of the G20 process. That's number one. And so we've been seeking to build consensus along the way. Obviously, the last week or so was the final sort of stretch where every word was now being scrutinized, every comma was being scrutinized, and there were intense negotiations and debates over various elements of the text. What was important was the spirit that characterized that process, with every participating country working towards ensuring consensus at the end of the day and ensuring a successful outcome. You know, the G20 accords the responsibility of leadership and coordination to one country, but it's really a multilateral platform, if you like, not that it exceeds or sees itself above the UN, but it's where all the member countries take joint and collective responsibility in ensuring the success of a summit and its year. And so what we now have is a declaration that places at the center of the global development agenda Africa, the global south, along with key issues that are pertinent to the development of the global south as well as Africa. And that is something to be enormously proud of and excited about. And these are issues that we're going to certainly, from a South African point of view, and I will safely say even from an African point of view with the African Union, that we're going to continue advancing and taking forward to make sure that we sustain the legacy that is going to be left behind by South Africa's led G20.
Multilateralism, do you feel that this G20 has enhanced the term multilateralism in order to make sure that the world is seen in a unified way?
Absolutely. The manner in which consensus was reached. What surprised you? The early adoption at the start of the summit of the declaration, the speed in which the summit adopted the declaration. It's a huge win for multilateralism. It's a massive recognition that no country, whether rich or poor, can go it alone or do it alone in resolving some of the challenges facing the globe and also in seizing some of the opportunities that are presented to us. And so global cooperation, global collaboration has been given a firm stamp of approval by this summit.
Vincent, one of the questions that came earlier on, and I was discussing this with our lead analyst, Dr. Imran Perkins, was, can the G20, and I know obviously the G20 doesn't have a sort of legal binding mechanism to it. You, on a number of occasions, have spoken about what is happening in Gaza, and Israel continues to violate the ceasefire agreement that happens there. How does something like a G20 or a bloc like the G20 really hold Israel accountable? I ask this because there are two major nations within the G20, France and the United Kingdom, that have this unwavering support in terms of arms exports and trade exports. So has there been discussions with President Ramaphosa in maybe convincing these nations to take a bit of a harder stance on Israel, given these violations of the ceasefire that are happening in Gaza?
So 2 points to that question. The first point is, does this declaration cover the Palestinian issue? It does. In the context of the four most gravest conflicts currently taking place in the world, namely the DRC, Sudan, Ukraine, and Palestine. And what the declaration says, it says we have to continue looking at being guided by the UN Charter that talks about peaceful resolution of conflicts, that talks about avoiding the use of force where there are issues of dispute. Yes, Israel continues to violate numerous UN resolutions and various provisions of international law. But what are we seeing? We're seeing the world continuing to respond in a more and more unified way. More countries have joined the South Africa's ICJ case. Recently at the United Nations, France and Saudi Arabia convened a meeting of global heads of states where more and more countries, including France, affirmed their recognition of the Palestinian state. It is an intractable conflict, but we are slowly making progress and more countries are coming around. And so that's the first point. The second point is, what do we do with these conflicts? And what do we do with this declaration at a bilateral level? There's a lot that we've already started doing, and there's a lot that we're going to continue doing, ensuring that our bilateral agreements are centered around some of these issues, that they include the manner in which we approach these issues. That's the second approach. Then we have the United Nations, which is the multilateral platform where these issues are constantly advanced, advocated, and where we seek that ongoing commitment to principles of international law, as well as adherence to the various UN charters.
One final question, Vincent. We just saw the breaking news now. The US has been barred from the closing ceremony of the G20 summit. I don't know what will develop in the next 24 hours. Can you just clarify that? Yeah.
No, look, there's a great deal of complexity in organizing, setting up, and managing a summit and an event of this magnitude. When we were told that Vice President Vance will be here, we made our teams available to assist his advanced team. It came here. Resources were going to be made available, like they've been made available to all other countries as per their requirements and their needs. Then we were told about a boycott, and we were told about the withdrawal of all US officials. Those resources were shifted to other countries. There are accreditation processes. There's so many other processes. Now, you cannot, at the 11th hour, when the summit is already underway, just at a snap of a finger, reactivate all of those processes when teams have already been redeployed to other areas of the summit. And so I won't use the word bad. One will have to just look at the chronology of events and think reasonably what will have been the right thing to do here. The right thing to do from the onset will have not been to boycott the summit. The right thing to do from the onset will have been participating as a member of the G20, engaging on issues that you disagree with, engage with South Africa on issues that you have falsely interpreted instead of a boycott. To then turn around and say you've been bad because you're forwarding an embassy delegation that has given us a long list of demands and courtesies that they must be provided, which cannot be provided at the 11th hour, is false.
1 minute, Vincent. The volatility of relations between Washington and Pretoria. Is Pretoria still willing to go ahead and speak with Washington, given the rhetoric that is coming out from the White House?
We're speaking with Washington. We'll continue to speak to Washington. We're going to be in the Troika with Washington, the G20 Troika, as past president, them as president from the 1st of December, along with the UK. And so we're going to have multiple platforms to engage with the US. For us, this is a temporary blip in what has been a great relationship up until now, and what will continue beyond the Trump era, being a constructive relationship and a great partnership with the US.
Vincent Magwenya, absolute pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Vincent Magwenya, the spokesperson for the presidency. Do stay tuned to us here on Mzansi Welcomes the World from day one of the G20 Summit. We'll have more for you after this break.